The Geauga County Automatic Data Processing Board today being Thursday, May 11th, 2023 at 3:30 p.m. in the appraisal conference room. We have only the agenda items we can discuss. We will include public comment in this. Can't go outside of those. Number one is the status of Mike Kurzinger's network credentials. That's the main reason why we're here. I'll do a very brief introduction on that, but early this morning we were notified through a combination of employees at Water Resources and CrowdStrike that Mike Kurzinger was logged into the network multiple times yesterday. We started pulling data and logs. Corey can give a very quick overview of what he ran into at Water Resources when he had to troubleshoot a number of issues that we later learned out this morning were from work that Mike Kurzinger had done yesterday. So if you want to just very briefly go over that, and I don't think Roger Peterson's here to yell at you, so you're clear.
So basically, I went over to troubleshoot and finish remediating the computer for Zach this morning. While working with that user, he mentioned that Kurzinger had been in the office yesterday working and had connected to the servers and changed permissions so that people could do payroll. And at the same time, they've also
hang on a second. I thought his equipment was seized.
You have his computer. So we have him as logged in on a conference room computer at Water Resources.
Oh, so it wasn't on his machine. It was on a generic machine.
It looks like it's a conference room machine. I have a photo of it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then we also had, at that same time, we started receiving tickets from users saying that they were getting access denied, insufficient permissions, unable to access for their shared drives on the servers. The most recent one of which was the check scanning computer that Water Resources uses to process data from the public is now down. She cannot scan checks or anything to her software.
That was working yesterday.
And that was working yesterday.
That's Jamie Peck's.
What do we know? Do we know why he was in? Why was he in?
What did they tell you?
The only thing I had from the Water Resources employees was that their reasoning that Kurzinger was in was to adjust permissions so somebody could do payroll. Were the exact words.
Do we have a help desk ticket to do that function? So they didn't call ADP to do it. They called a guy on leave.
Can't do that kind of stuff.
Well, we're IT. We can do anything you ask us to do. I mean, I'm. This is just.
I didn't know if this is something special. I mean, this would be like coming into my office. It's not a.
This is like bizarre. Jim, do you know anything about?
I presented this letter, and it's paid administrative leave to Mr. Kurzinger. It states on the second paragraph, during the administrative leave period, you shall not enter upon the water resource property unless requested by the water resource director, sanitary engineer, or operations manager. If requested, you shall come at all times and be accompanied by resource personnel.
So do we know who made the request?
One of these people, the director of sanitation engineering.
We don't know which one.
No.
And so we need to find out which one, and then we need to ask them what he did, right? Because they witnessed it.
Or maybe the administrator.
So we don't really know.
We don't know who did it.
We have
But the
video.
main point is he was invited to come back in to do a task.
Can we
Invited.
pull up that video footage, Josh? We have video footage of him in the hallway, so he did not come.
This is like a dream, or actually a nightmare, but a dream.
You can go right to the client. All the way down. Yep.
Full screen.
So these cameras are recording something.
Absolutely.
Remember, they're an evidence.
They're the evidence
They're
collection.
the evidence collection system. Nobody. Well, your guys are monitoring them now, right? Are they looking?
No,
They
go ahead.
don't have them
Well,
on.
when the equipment comes in.
Oh,
Right now, we just look after the fact.
Okay, can
Like this.
you plan it?
Yeah, go ahead. And there's the file.
Who's that? That's Kathy Husto.
Did you take his ID card? Because he doesn't scan it.
What's he have in his hand? A banana?
Banana.
So that's the new swipe card is a banana?
Must be, it'll be there for a
Key,
while.
banana access system. So
That's
swipe
the
a banana.
Okay, that's the extent of the video. That's pretty
Pretty slippery.
No, it's anticlimactic, by the way.
Commissioner DeVore asked for actual evidence that he was physically
Banana
there.
was the highlight.
Does he leave with the banana?
Ah. You are in law enforcement.
There was a chip in the banana, and it wasn't a chocolate chip.
We shouldn't be laughing about this.
You know.
Yeah, just so, I mean, I guess, was it Friday you sent me the email
Friday night.
Friday night.
or afternoon? Or ish, I can't remember. So I did get an email Friday. Commissioner Dvorak had requested ADP to revoke Mike's credentials.
Yeah, he sent it to me. Jim had asked me in a telephone call, what the process was. I said, well, we need to, ADP can't revoke just any employee's credentials because they're not under our authority. There's only certain programs that we have authority, and one would be like New World because I have authority over New World. So Jim was copied on that request in my response. And Jim, to paraphrase him, said that for that to come from a commissioner, it has to come from a board action, or the administrator could,
Or the director.
or the director.
So I guess my opinion was, I don't think that Frank or Chuck or ADP can just be revoking credentials for an employee under somebody else's hiring authority. I think that there has to be either, the elected official or the county administrator or the director of that department would have to communicate them, hey, revoke this guy's credentials. I just felt like that was, and no offense, Jim, one commissioner really can't do that. So I explained that,
Yes.
I explained that to them
Understand?
and told them that, we would need to do, a different process there. And then I didn't really hear any, you had asked me, since New World is an auditor function, I said, yeah, you can revoke us access to
Which-
New World.
Which we did.
Yeah, you immediately did. But I said for the rest of it, while I have concerns about network access, and I know that you guys do too, and Jim Dvorak did, we needed something further, and I think, Jim, you made the comment you were gonna address it at the commissioners meeting on Tuesday, which I thought you had addressed it.
Yes. I requested to pull all credentials for Mike Kurzinger and Joe Camino, and that's how I phrased it. And then I wanted to engage in the people in the meeting room, the public. I just gave a simple example about me being a realtor, and my IT person lives in Cambridge, and he can control my computer and make corrections from his office. Well, our administrator took that as wanted me to looked at it as if I was requesting remote access to the computer. And I said, all credentials, whether it's in a building or in the administration building or wherever. But that's the spin that happened. That he looked at it as remote credentials only.
But to be clear, we haven't gotten anything from the administrator to revoke remote credentials. I haven't gotten any request from the administrator or the board as a whole to revoke any credentials for Kurzinger or Camino.
Now, I did tell them on Friday, I said that, well, I didn't think ADP could revoke credentials for somebody under someone else's hiring authority.
A vendor is different.
Yes, a vendor's different, and I think the board would do that. I think we'd have to, I told them we'd have to have a meeting and vote, but I think my understanding, and I haven't been that connected with this with you guys, but my understanding talking to you today was after Tuesday's commissioners meeting, we thought this was taken care of.
Yes, because the administrator said he would look into that. And then Wednesday, he calls up he or someone called up Mike Kurzinger and invited him into the building, which, that really got me upset because things are out of control and the commissioners are not being informed by the administrator of the day-to-day process with this situation. And it's very upsetting.
So can we get back to what? So he comes in, he gets access to some computer in just a generic computer, and gets into the systems in water resource.
Do you have an idea of what he was doing?
Do we know where can you example where you logged
I
in?
mean, you can log, like, I could get on this computer and put in I can log in on this computer
As you,
as me.
yeah, but
No, I think that's what he did.
well,
He remoted from that computer to other computers.
he's remoting.
So he was remoting in other computers that, my understanding was he had more administrative access from those computers. So he was remoting to those computers to be able to do whatever he decided.
Do we have the logs of what?
Yes.
Can we see?
He's-
Okay, I thought it just got onto his.
Can we see the logs, Josh?
Workstation.
Yep.
It's like you're like the Wizard of Oz back there.
He did remote from within the building versus right here.
Okay, so Josh, what are we looking at?
Right.
Well, you go ahead and share it first.
We've not heard any communication. Central.
I did not, I because his credentials.
Okay.
activated in Central one, so I don't think that- this was just RDP.
Okay.
What does all this mean?
Could you speak to what this is?
Sure. So what you're looking at are logs. Yeah, you might want to, I guess, scroll towards the bottom.
Let's scroll to where we see the May 4th to May 10th break.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Just keep going down.
So, CrowdStrike records, basically every time your account tries to
Other way, Jeff.
do any type of authentication,
Keep going.
what you're
Just stop.
seeing here. Go up a little bit.
Just like a mashup. So
Right there, yeah.
So, if your account is active doing anything, and this could be something like maybe you locked your computer and left it on and it was doing something in the background, then it records all those actions, but it records what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and if it fails or succeeds. So you can see that the last time before May 10th that he was active was May 4th. That means that there wasn't anything in the background using his credentials or anything between the 4th and the 10th. On the 10th, his credentials became active again. And you can see he was attempting to log into WRO-conference room, which is the conference room from here. So you can see there is computer access there.
So the next series of numbers is the IP address that he's hitting, right?
Yes.
Okay, and the failed authentication, I mean, it's just
So yeah, I mean, sometimes you may fail authentication because maybe he put his password in
Wrong,
the first
yeah.
time or something.
Okay.
It could be any number. It could be he logged in and something else failed when he tried to log in.
because I see there he did some file share work.
So that just means that he connected to the file share. Like when you log into your computer, that you might have a network drive that connects. So you can see that there are things that are connecting, and it tells you what it's connected to on
What-
the right side. So if you go up a little bit, keep going to where you see remote access. So it's he started accessing.
Uncategorized
All
protected
right, go ahead and
storage.
stop. Okay, so this is where you see that there's
Two
remote
minutes.
desktop
Unusual.
activity. So that means he remoted from the WRO conference room into WRS admin 10, which you see on the far right. So that means he was physically on that computer, the conference room computer, and then he had remoted into the admin computer at the shop, I believe it's WRS.
We believe the admin computer is stationed at the shop and has some viewing abilities across the rest of Water Resources network.
So he's outside of the new building now, virtually at the shop.
we believe that computer is almost a mimic of what this machine was that the prosecutor's office seized. It has a lot of that software and stuff. We were no T. We're not sure, but it's the one that we've seen before with that.
So what did he do while he was on that?
Sure. I mean, it looks like he's, what is Kerberos? What is that?
It has to do with authenticating with controller.
Okay. Which was what we were fixing, right?
I mean, it's part of the thing.
Okay,
But
so
whenever you do anything with your domain account, it has to try to connect to the domain controller. There's going to be a lot of fields in there. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's doing.
I don't
anything
even
wrong.
understand the explanation. To be honest with you.
So after this was all done, what happened to the systems? What was the experience of the users?
So this is Corey now. So we got these help desk tickets. What was basically your summation of what their issue was this morning?
So summation of what all of the issues seem to be was that something was changed inside of the data server, which is their file share server, which is its WRO data, that caused people to lose access to their shared drive. So when Katie logs in and she has an administrative drive to use with the engineers, that is a shared drive. Basically, whatever occurred on the WRO data server resulted in all of these people not being able to access those drives anymore. They're not able to properly perform functions of the drive.
So it permits people to get access to files based on their
Correct.
login
And that's, you can
credentials.
set permissions and stuff so that only
So-
certain people can see certain.
So for some reason, he altered those that certain people that used to be able to get access couldn't.
Correct.
Are we able to fix that, or don't we know? It's just like a
I
house.
should be able to remote in and fix those, yes. So
Did-
we were in progress.
Didn't they kill some remote in though? Somebody said they
We
killed our ability to.
So we can use Endpoint Central to get it.
We had to, we could not use remote desktop.
Right, not
They
our.
killed remote desktop.
Yeah, there was actually a group policy.
We think this
Which
was
we-
accidental or malicious.
That's what I'm trying to find out, but it's either incompetence or malicious. I mean, that. At this point, it's like this is like spin
Given the
away.
history on that on the confidence.
I don't know, Jim. I don't know.
He's there for 4 hours.
Well,
I mean, I'd like to talk to the person who was
Well, you
looking over his shoulder while he was typing pursuant to this.
no.
Which-
Well,
There's more
When was the
logs.
last time he did so?
Pardon?
Because according to this letter, it's not like the most.
Exactly. So somebody has to know exactly what he was doing and why,
I
right?
did invite Steve Olowich to this meeting. He said he had to get out. He could not be here.
I mean, we got to do something. We
He
can't.
should have been escorted at all.
Well, I'm not sure if that was the Kathy Hostel. I can't tell if that was escorting him to there.
Looks like she just ran into him.
That's what I'm not
Yeah, but
sure.
when you escort someone, you stay with
We had
Yeah,
the
okay.
he had the banana.
You're right.
the banana with it.
So
It should have been escorted from our resource officer to the 3rd floor and then on to water
and then
resource.
handed off to this person, I would think, right? Whoever has.
Well, I guess the issue is Jim was told that he would have just access to the systems and relied upon that on Tuesday, and follow up with what he wanted done on Friday. I mean, I think we would have scheduled an ADP meeting. I didn't think that, right? I mean, you wanted the ADP meeting, so I'll just deal with it Tuesday.
So I wanted
Nope, you're
emergency
okay, sir.
commissioners,
Yeah. Oh, when was that?
this morning, communicated with the other commissioners. and, Just couldn't make it happen.
So, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Couldn't make it happen.
Couldn't-
I tried to call for an emergency meeting for the commissioners to address this. And Ralph was busy doing his full-time job. And Tim he could make a meeting but 1 or 1:30. And then Tim was communicating with Jerry Morgan and our clerk. They said that the timeframe didn't fit them. We'd have to get the emergency, information out to the public and newspapers, and we just didn't have enough time to do that. But lo and behold, we're here at an emergency meeting at 3:30.
Different boss.
With
Yeah.
board members.
But I mean, I appreciate everybody being busy. I mean, I was in Sandusky, which is an hour and 20-minute drive about 45 minutes ago, so you can imagine how I got here. Yeah, well, it had a county vehicle, so that's probably not a good thing. But, you know, I mean, this is, I don't know about anybody else, but this bothers the crap out of me. I mean, I'm like major concern here. What are we lawfully allowed to do as a board? Can we?
I think the board can by motion
Restrict credentials
eliminate his access.
based on, I mean, this is a risk to the
I mean, I
county.
think the board could do that. I mean, anybody who puts the network at risk, I think the board can. I just don't think you guys can run around and do that if it's not under your hired authority.
Okay.
But I think that's the point of the board, right? You know, we're all different stakeholders. We come together, and that's kind of the reason we have ADP. So I think the board can do that. I know when we talked when you were driving back right before this, you know, I threw out different options. Maybe we don't have to do this today, but we could have a policy maybe. I mean, I think the board have a policy. Hey, if anybody's put on administrative leave,
They're automatically,
their
credentials are
county
automatically.
employee, they're automatically credentials are suspended unless, you know, the hiring authority comes to the board and wants to do otherwise. Maybe
I
we
mean,
should look at a policy, but I think in this situation, we should probably take immediate action.
I know, Jim, I know you've talked to some other county elected commissioners,
In Northeast Ohio.
and you shared with me that you kind of told them what we were going through, and they weren't immune from it themselves. They've had similar experiences. Did they give you advice as to what normally should be done?
Take action as soon as possible. Make the hard choices and preserve and protect our county and everything that has to do with the commissioner's office. So that's what I'm trying to do.
I'll say our informal policy on credentials is a little bit tighter than what you described. My policy has only been in writing from either the ADP board member or the alternate. So if I get it from the director, I don't do anything with it. It has to come from Jerry Morgan or one of the commissioners. So you got into a situation a month or so ago and said, hey, I need you to do this. We're going to put an employee on paid administrative leave here shortly. You told me beforehand, and I said send it in writing via email. That's the only way we do it right now.
I don't want to, I'm not trying to create World War III. I'm having trouble with having the authority come from the county administrator. I think there's indications, at least to me, from a 30,000 foot view, he's too close to the situation.
Especially since he came from Water Resources for 12 years and then become a county administrator. So
I'm not sure we're making good decisions right now as a county.
Right.
I think we're making some pretty bad ones. And I think I'm not sure what the threshold is going to be of the public to put up with this much longer. I'll make a motion that the board revoke the credentials of Mike Kurzinger as well as Mr. Camino. I believe we've already done Camino because he's a vendor. And as a vendor, he's a county vendor, not necessarily a departmental vendor. He may only work for one department, but he's approved by the county. So that has already been done, right?
Yes and no. His external access is.
But he could be getting into water resources.
And we have questions of whether or not he had shared access with Mike Kurzinger's
So killing Mike Kurzinger's credentials would in fact solve both issues, right?
unless there's some hidden time.
Is there a way that we can, well, is there anybody else at Water Resources that we believe has the knowledge to RDP into other stations and do work? Do you guys have any reason to suspect there's anyone else? Or can Joe Burley help us determine that?
If somebody has the ability to. Thank you.
Is it remote in?
I would say there's probably nothing necessarily stopping them, but they're not, they know.
I think he's inquiring as to technical knowledge of their remaining employees.
Yeah.
I mean, the only person maybe that I would consider would be Nick Torres.
Didn't you say there were several people that could
Their
remote in
tech
and
savvy.
control that McFarland valves and stuff?
Well, yeah, that's what you mean on the mission system stuff? You're turning on the pumps?
Yeah, I remember you said there were a couple.
I mean,
I mean, there's only so far we could go. We can't be micromanaging departments, so.
Because we don't know if he has access to any other employees' information.
or credential.
or credentials.
It's a great point.
So you may know their passwords.
It's a great point. We can force password updates for everyone, so we don't share them.
Well, can we, what I make a motion then is that we revoke the credentials, the known credentials of Mike Kurzinger at all levels throughout water resources, and we do a forced password reset of all water resource stations. Right, and that's gonna push it to the top, right? We're probably gonna get a bunch of complaints, but I'd rather get complaints than run a risk of,
People are gonna be unhappy.
well, they should be unhappy right now, because I understand they're not being able to share files, right? Right. Is that still the case? We're still.
Correct. We're still working on resolving it right now.
We slowed things down when we found out what had happened.
Okay, so that's my motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Do a roll call vote for emergency meeting. We have a second.
Jim,
Yes.
Sheriff,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Nora, Celeste, Katie, Mr. Borak.
Yes.
Sheila, yes, Chuck.
Yes.
All right, motion stands approved. Any exceptions?
This is just, it was handled very sloppy.
You're giving it,
I mean,
that's being nice to it too. I know that, this to me is outrageous, how we're doing this.
Is there gonna be any further investigation of this, why he was there? Or do we have, our board has authority to fire him?
I mean, I think as part of fixing whatever he did, I think we'd all appreciate to know exactly what he was doing. It's kind of bizarre. I mean, do you think they called him in to help fix something and then it just didn't?
But there's no help. That's why I asked, is there a help desk ticket? That they were asking us to fix something, we didn't. And then they said, well, let's have Kurzinger come in and do it.
My understanding is, did somebody tell you they called him in?
Yes.
Okay.
But what was the impetus of that? We don't know what it was. What was,
Well, I know that payroll had to be done. I know that the person that handles payroll at that department couldn't get into some files. I think that was the main reason why Kurzinger was called in, but 4 hours later.
but a week ago though, we solved the payroll problem. Right?
Kathleen has access to her files. She had them.
I don't know.
Remember, we're a week after he was put on leave.
Right.
Or we're a week after the people came in to seize equipment. And so my understanding was we got to have payroll at the end of that week. I know Frank got a call Thursday or Friday from Kathleen saying, I got to get payroll submitted, because we were trying to get their email back. I mean, this comes at the heels of their email crash and all that other stuff. And we walked her through a method to do that. And I believe that's still intact.
That's all changed since then, because now she's had access to her files. The servers are all lit. I think that's what's the really.
Yeah, I don't understand what changed.
And again, we didn't see an RDP or an access to her machine directly. There's other.
So it never went to her machine?
We didn't see a Kathleen Miller one logs. Yeah, I didn't see.
Well, she could be getting the file though from a
another
shared
machine.
server. So you have to look at where the,
What are these like part-timers putting in timesheets? I mean, what do they have to pull? I mean, I don't know, payroll.
I'm guessing it's probably the McFarland people, the people at the lab. They have to put in their times. And they're probably on a shared drive so that they can just pull the numbers.
I didn't think it was a payroll week.
No, it wasn't.
It's not a
The
payroll
pay
week.
was that day, so. that had to
That's what I don't
submitted
get. It's not a
by
payroll
noon on
week.
Monday.
What,
Don't we have to have our payroll in though this Friday, right? By noon?
But that was last Friday, so that pay would have had to been in by noon of that Monday.
Yeah, with this direct deposit, I don't know. When we get paid. When do we get paid?
We got paid that Friday. The
Your
day he
wife
was in
knows.
there
She-
was
sure she
paid.
does.
Payroll's due noon on Monday.
So
Which
that day,
Monday? This
This
past
Monday.
Monday?
The past
Oh,
Monday.
this Monday.
that Friday he was in, the pay was
Okay.
already done. There was nothing to be submitted to prompted payroll.
As you can also, I've never done our payroll.
But when I
I
left,
sign it, but it's all
That was
prepared for
yesterday.
you.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
yeah, this was yesterday.
when I left
So-
my
so
office today, before coming down here, the administrator told me that Kathleen wrote down everything that Kurzinger told her about payroll, so she could get into files.
You wrote that down yesterday or
Wednesday when he came in.
When,
It's that-
what
that
was
was
his goal
yesterday.
with payroll?
So she's gonna
Unless
get
it's
us
just a
that.
story, I don't know.
But you're right, it doesn't, so
Something
so
doesn't,
She's trying to
doing
get it for
anything
this
payroll
Friday?
related yesterday doesn't
doesn't make any
sense.
sense. Well, and if at Tuesday's meeting, if they were looking into doing credential throttling, and then we're inviting them in to change stuff, what do we do between Tuesday? I mean, today's Thursday. What's been done? Well, how much investigation does a human have to do to figure out whether they should just write a letter saying, please revoke credentials? I mean, it's really not a lot of work.
Yeah.
Can we send a letter from the board that demands to know why this happened?
Not a bad
That's a
idea.
good idea. Is that a motion?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Roll call
Do a
vote.
roll call, just to be safe.
Wait, let me get this motion.
Sorry.
Put their hand.
Yeah, put it, yeah, and can you do a JPEG where you're holding it up? You're holding it up in
I
the,
promised I wouldn't hold any more cherry letters. Leaving it on the table.
Okay, Jim,
Yes.
Sheriff.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Nora. Yes. Celeste. Yes. Katie. Yes. Mr. Dvorak.
Yes.
Sheila. Yes. Chuck.
yes. Is there anything else?
Well,
Public comment.
Well, so we had put down item agenda number 2 was removing any employee network access in case there were any issues beyond just Kurzinger.
Employee network
In case there were any
access.
other employees that the board felt potentially had an issue with this or conflict of any sort.
Well, d-
maybe we should wait till we get an answer from the letter.
Okay, so then there's no
Yeah,
discussion.
I'm curious who invited him.
Unless you have any inkling of any other people that suspect at this point.
I really struggle, Scott, with the fact that Mike Kurzinger was somehow essential to payroll on a non-payroll week. I'm very concerned that he was potentially brought in by somebody else who had asked him if he was not. Really did much before, but I don't know. No.
so for clarity, who do you think we should send this letter to? The Director of Water Resources, the Administrator, or the Board of County
Oh, I
Commissioners?
think I said the commission.
Commissioners,
Oh, all
all
three.
All three.
All right.
and maybe they'll come in and do a full and complete presentation on it.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3. So you have referenced this a couple of times. Our informal policy for everyone is if network credentials are to be suspended for an employee, ADP does not have the authority to do that for any employee not under the hiring authority of the automatic data processing board, this board's people, okay? So it's either from the actual ADP board member or the alternate, not the IT guy, not the chief deputy who's not an alternate. That's the only 2 people I've ever accepted that from, informally and in writing. If we want to deviate from there, we can do that in the future, but that's the policy as it stands right now. So in this case, it would only be one of the commissioners or a jury lawyer.
Well, I guess this is a little unique in that if there's a board, I'm always one that like something that's run by a board, there's a public meeting and action by the board.
And so when I say appoint, I didn't mean appointing authority, and individual commissioners don't have appointing authority.
That's my issue.
A board action.
So I think that would run into, but if they have an administrator, like, okay, I think the administrator of the health department, the director of the board of elections, I mean, I don't expect the board of elections to get together.
Now, the director does,
Okay,
because they're the board members.
or I think the county administrator, but what about, what you tell me, like Craig can't call you? You would
I
take it from,
would not take it from a director.
really? Okay, that's fine. I mean,
That's how it
just,
stands right now. I'm covering my own. But if the board creates a policy,
if that's the policy, I'm fine. I just
Here-
felt
here's
like
only-
when Jim
here's only-
contacted you, well, first of
That's
all, I
why-
really think you're the main rep right now, right?
No, Tim is.
Tim is,
But I'm saying, I just didn't think one commissioner could tell you guys, revoke one of our
I don't
employees.
think
credentials.
I think the issue I would have would be, usually this comes from a person that's very knowledgeable of a situation where an employee is put on leave for a variety of reasons, which could include potential termination at some point in time. And I don't know that the commissioners, in the case of JFS, I don't know that the commissioners have a full understanding of the day-to-day activities that Craig would have, for example. So I would have a problem if we were to add a condition to our policy that if Craig were to request it, we do it for the abundance of caution, and then we have it ratified by the commissioners within a certain window of time. But at least we shut it down, because let's just take, for example, health department. And Adam made the comment, well, if I fire somebody on a Sunday, I want it immediately shut off. If we have to wait for board action, you could be 2 weeks and you're in exactly this boat.
Yeah, I mean, that's
But
my
we don't.
point.
I've operated on Adam doing that before because he has the authority.
But you wouldn't for Craig, and he could be in the same situation.
But Craig is not the one who reports to me the appointing authority. Jerry is. Craig reports to Jerry. It's either the person who reports to the appointing authority. I do that to cover because we don't have a policy. If we create a policy, I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
If it's in the policy,
I just don't, I think even in this case, I'm not sure Jerry would understand why Craig was doing what he's doing on a Sunday. He knows the circumstances, and, you know,
You're assuming we call Craig back.
yeah, well, that's, unfortunately,
that's, I'm saying
Yeah.
in
Do
lieu
you guys
of,
want to work on something? I mean, we'll do it at the next meeting.
yeah,
Yeah,
let's,
hopefully this isn't going to come up in the next.
well,
meeting.
like I said, the trouble is now you're going to design something for a one-off scenario that should never have happened.
Yeah, I don't want to do that, but I think that this brought up an issue where Jim, I think he had a legitimate concern, like, hey, I want this guy's credentials revoked.
Right.
And I think you guys were prepared to do, you were prepared to do it, and I just felt like,
No, I
you know,
appreciate the
we're
counsel. That
checks and
was,
balances. I don't,
well, yeah, and
I mean, the right thing to do
I
is
think-
cut off his credentials,
Yeah.
but I just,
but we have to do it the right
it's
way.
a slippery slope where, you know,
No, I agree.
again, we all have kind of our independent, you know, elected powers, and I think you need to respect those.
I agree.
Even if somebody is making a poor decision, which is obviously what happened here.
But if the county administrator would have done his job, this wouldn't have.
Well, that's right.
I think the question now is whether or not the county administrator can do his job with this because it's close
Past history with
situation.
that department.
Yeah, I don't know that we're getting good decision-making right now from him. And this particular issue because of his involvement in them.
Yeah, I don't blame the employee. Clearly, his boss called him into work.
The guy who runs water resources by his own admission.
So,
We can work on a policy. I'm telling you the policies right now. If we have a great policy.
yeah, I think we need, especially with elected boards, they can't move fast. We need to figure something out.
We've never had an issue with this until.
I personally don't have a problem with a director level person, at least of being able to suspend credentials for a period of time.
Well, we'll have to create a policy.
So you, I mean,
No,
Why don't we, it's,
because you're absolutely right. I don't even know if Craig would be able to get a hold of it.
As you're using Craig as an example. Craig is on.
because
but
he's got a lot of employees.
Craig is on the
He's-
high end.
I know he's a good director.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of employees, and you know, he's one that would be like, hey, we got to move right away. I mean, that's.
If I get an email from Glenn saying suspend credentials or Joanna or Roger, I guess when is it at?
Well, I think
So for another example,
Like
like the
you said, right?
Secretary of State came in and removed our entire building director, and myself, who would you turn to credentials for us?
no idea.
So,
I think we probably have an emergency meeting.
yes, then you would.
Yeah.
So-
What are we, more?
What are we, Lucas County? What's going on?
so I think we're getting in the weeds a little bit. So we'll just come back with a policy to prepare for the board. That's not subject to any review today.
Okay, the last discussion point would be public comment then. Do we have any public comment from anyone,
Oh, boy.
whether virtual or in attendance?
And,
It's gotta be related to
It
this.
has to be related to the agenda.
I have some questions for you guys. This is Elise from Geauga Times Courier. Okay, so I just want some clarifications on some stuff. When we're talking about the administrator, we're talking about Jerry Morgan, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That is supposed to be the issue. Okay. And then, Mr. Dvorak, did you guys vote on this at the commissioner meeting on Tuesday about issues with, you said, you guys mentioned something about concerns about revoking his credentials and that you had emailed about this on Friday and that it needed to be discussed at the board meeting. Was that done on Tuesday or what occurred?
On Tuesday at the meeting, I, made a suggestion to pull all credentials for these two people. And Tim Lennon asked, do we need to vote on this? And Jerry says, no, I'll make it happen and I'll research it. And so I was disappointed that we didn't vote on it. I should have held true and made the motion and waiting for somebody to second the motion. I know better next time.
Right.
So,
But it could have, but at that point, Jerry could have ordered.
Right.
yeah,
I mean,
because nonchalantly, he says, I'll look into it and
Right.
take care of it. That was on
you had
Tuesday.
you had no reason to suspect that it would not have been looked into.
Right.
So
No reason not to believe that it wasn't gonna happen.
Right.
So then on Wednesday,
Jerry,
Mike
County
Kurzinger gets
Administrator
called
has
up
the power
to come
without
in.
vote, right?
Yeah, Jerry, yeah, your question is, does Jerry, as the county administrator, have access to write that order to revoke? Yes, he does. He could advise ADP to revoke credentials on an employee under the authority of the county commissioners. And we would act on it.
100%.
I reiterated that.
And that's
Vote
exactly
you on
what Jim
Friday.
wrote in
Yep.
his reply to Jim's request to me to revoke credentials. He said the board could take action or the county administrator could order it.
Okay. And then, you said, is it currently, you guys know that Steve Olek is the one that asked him to come in, or you're unaware currently who asked him to come in?
At this time, I don't know,
Okay.
but he was asked to come in.
But he wasn't escorted is what you guys were saying. Sorry. It was like real in and out, some of the sound for your meeting. So I'm just trying to get some clarification on some things.
Yeah, all we know is that somebody asked him to come in, but we don't know who, and that's one of the questions we will ask in our letter to all the parties, saying what prompted him to come in, who made that request for him to come in, and then what was he doing and who was with him while he was doing it. Those are the kinds of questions that we're going to ask, and we'd love to hear those answers.
Hi, Amy Patterson for the Maple Leaf here.
Oh, I had one more question.
Okay.
No fights.
Who was it?
Elise, your hand is still up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't actually know how to undo that. Oh,
That's
here,
okay.
lower hand. I think I did it.
Help desk.
Help desk, yeah. So there is no help desk ticket, right? I guess there's two questions. Currently,
Yeah.
you guys don't know of one for this.
There was no help desk ticket before Mike Kurzinger came in, but I understand there was one after he left, right?
So I have 2 to 3.
2 to
Because
3.
people have access, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Because people had lost access to shared drives, right? Is that
Yeah,
why?
what were the nature of the help desk? tickets?
Correct. They've lost access to their shared drives, and it's not just one drive, it's an across the board thing. They can't access any shared drives.
Okay. And then who motioned for the letter to be sent? I couldn't tell who said that.
Who made the motion? Sheriff Hildenbrand.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The demand all capitals, demand. Yeah.
I was actually gonna cheat, and I was just gonna ask if there's any way the board could release like a press release or something that has the timeline and what happened and when. Because thank you, Elise, for asking all those questions. But because I want to make sure, it looks to me like about 10 after 9, he came into the building, and then I'm not clear exactly. I was trying to read the Excel sheet. You said a few hours, so I was wondering if there's a way we could get like a bullet point summary, because it's kind of hard to piece together a timeline for the reading public. That might be a lot easier if you could just sort of, when you send out the package, like with the letter in it, if you could maybe just summarize really quickly, even if it's just like, this happened and that happened. That would be
like an incident report, like we did last.
Yes, that would be
if we
perfect.
do that, Frank.
Thank you.
I'll be gone tomorrow, but I can work on it at night.
Mr. Flays, do you guys still have his computer in your possession? Kurzinger?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
You guys talked about him remotely accessing something. Was that a workspace in a different location, or?
It appears to be he was in a computer, a conference room computer, remotely accessing the shop.
One of the computers in the shop.
One of the computers in the shop, which is at another location,
Administrative.
a water resources shop.
Okay.
And Mr. Dvorak, you said you confirmed with their payroll, the woman who does their payroll, that she had written down all of the information she got last week from him regarding those issues, right?
That was Jim.
Oh, sorry.
The Administrator Morgan told me today that Kathleen Miller wrote down all the instructions and information from Mike Kurzinger about payroll access or other files.
Yesterday.
Okay.
Or was it
Well, Wednesday.
When he was in.
Yeah, I just learned of this today.
Got it. Any other questions? Anybody here? Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody here?
All right, that's questions, but you guys can answer. Why is he doing payroll?
That's confusing.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned.